So not everybody has followed this journey that we've been on so far. So it's probably worth just recapping how we got to where we are. Some bits of it, you know, like the whole world's got a virus and so we've gone online, but some bits of it you probably don't know, like the story of how we came to actually start this conversation. So basically we were asked by Bethlehem Gallery to kind of, in a very open and generative way, kind of interrogate this intersection between mental health and justice, because they're doing a big research project with the Wellcome Foundation on really rewriting the rules of how mental health and justice comes together. And from that also we brought in art and creativity, and can art and creativity play a role in this field? And I guess over the last couple of sessions, we found out definitely yes. And what we've tried to do is just to kind of, in the way that we do with Talkaoke, some of you may not be familiar with Talkaoke, but it's a kind of pop-up talk show where we just let the participants kind of own it and take the conversation where they want to go. And so we've developed a lot of ideas and try to build those ideas upon ideas upon ideas. And that's where we've got to. At the same time, we've had Rick trying to visualize those ideas. And I think it would be a good way to recap the conversation so far. If we just go through those ideas. Rick, are you ready to go through those ideas? What's that? Okay. How do I enable screen sharing? Hang on a sec.
That should be at the bottom of your screen, the panel, the middle green button.
It seems to be enabled from my perspective. Okay, we're going to have a. Obviously, it's a bit. It's a little bit of a kind of technical sort of. This one. Okay. All participants.
Right, so for everybody who's joining us now, Oriana, hello, welcome back.
Okay, so I think we're ready. We've just sorted out that little technical problem. So hopefully we'll be able to get these images, and they'll really tell you the story of how we got to where we are right now. The first conversation we had in real life at the Ortus Cafe, which is part of the Maudsley Hospital in Camberwell. This is just a flow of conversation, so I'm just going to go through. Unless, Margot, you want to talk through some of these things, do you?
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah.
So yes, so this is probably the first visualization. So yeah, we've been through a lot of these. So we were talking about you know, how justice and mental health are kind of interacting, or
your video
section looks like. We were talking about how mental health is perceived differently in different cultures, and what the idea of maybe taboos, or maybe what's normal or not normal. Yeah, it just depends on where we're kind of coming from and the cultures. We were also talking about the whole system actually being conducive of more mental health issues, people kind of reacting to oppression of the system in a way that maybe, you know, isn't considered normal or in line with the system's policies. And we were talking about also about how media and how the world that we live in, how that can influence how we feel mentally, and how we can be easily manipulated by those things as well.
All right, let's flip through some of these other images quickly, because this is about I think it's a William Blake quote, "Mind forged manacles," that is our own mental perception of the world actually what is inhibiting us, what is trapping us? Are we actually our own jailer to a certain extent? Let's move on quickly because we've got a few to get through. This is an idea that came a bit later on in the first conversation, this idea of the art police, which is a kind of intervening force, a pro-social force that works with creativity out on the street to try and creatively connect people, or actually respond to life situations in a positive, creative way. Let's move on then. This is the idea of like, is art in itself kind of like a bad word? Does it put people off because people feel as soon as you start talking about art that it's inaccessible, or it's something special rather than something that's a more direct kind of experience? What's this, Rick? Who's the author? Are we kind of like, is the kind of matrix the author of our ideas? Are we kind of just the kind of output of like a much larger system? Okay, let's move on. This, I mean, we're talking about this. I mean, I think we're talking about Van Gogh and how he suffered a lot with mental health issues during his life, and but yet he's now one of the most renowned artists ever. And we're asking the question, if you could ask Vincent van Gogh, would he rather have a life without suffering, or a life of being an artist that's suffering? And what is that connection between suffering and creativity? Let's move through. This is about insanity fashion, and it's almost about like, what are the kind of trends? Is certain kinds. I think we were talking about social media influencers talking about their various mental health issues,
but also about how Instagram influencers can become the kind of the role models and the spokespeople for various issues. And are they making it trendy? Are they self-promoting, or are they bringing a really important kind of,
are they helping
shining light on issues?
Yeah. Let's move through. Then we started talking about death, and we got a bit existential here.
Yeah, quite bleak at some point.
And are we really sort of, I mean, in a way, in the last month, this has become like way bigger, and it's kind of, it's got to the point, where I think we're all got this hanging over us at the moment with the current circumstances. But this was just emerging in the first session we did over a month ago. Let's move through. Then we talked about austerity. I mean, I guess we're not really in austerity anymore, but we've got a different kind of, thing going on. But this is about how cuts, but also the very kind of mood and mode of austerity is really kind of negative on everybody's mental health, because it's a kind of pressure. Okay, let's move on. This is about a kind of like global anxiety. At the time, 5 weeks ago, the global anxiety was more about climate. It was about the young people experiencing extreme anxiety about climate change and global extinction. But I mean, I guess there's other global anxieties that have come into play since then. And, this led on actually to a discussion about, how sane is the world itself, and dealing with questions of mental health on a global or societal scale. Okay, let's move on. This is about this is about a death cafe where you can go and talk about death, and you can talk about the big subjects. It's not suggesting that this particular cafe has, you know, it's got some public health issues, but obviously people are going in there, so that, you know, it's a very popular cafe. This is about having different personas online, can we actually change our whole personality just like that? Let's move on. This was, I guess, yeah, this is, now that we're on to the last week's session, you know, which is different times, and plus we're online. This is about Boris shaking the magic money tree finally, and the money raining down for everybody to stay at home. This was about this idea of, like, you know, what are the kind of different kind of spectrums of mental health? It's not just like good mental health and bad mental health. It's like functional and dysfunctional, contributing and not contributing. There's so many different, it's not just a kind of one sort of line between mentally healthy and mentally unhealthy. There's so many different other elements to it, and we were talking about that a bit last week. Then this was another popular, I should say, and I think it's important really to give the context to this conversation, that what we're trying to do is, through all of this discussion, come up with some kind of proposal to put forward as a kind of creative intervention into this sector. And one of the most popular ideas is this idea of the National Art Service, and Claire, who's out there somewhere, is keen to get this going, like, straight away. Whether it's a kind of military thing, because a lot of people don't like this kind of military terminology, either for the situation we're in now with coronavirus, or for the idea of, like, this creative service that artists are involved in, that we bring to the nation. However, you know, it's a nice way to illustrate the idea of this National Art Service. And this is one of the sort of front-running ideas. I guess it's an evolution from the art police idea. Let's move on. I think another great idea is this idea of a kind of mental health audio tour, where you can go to the scenes and the sites where people are having difficulties or having experiences, and actually listen to what that feels like. And you can actually, in a way, put yourself in the shoes of different people, where that audio tour would go. And would it be in the current situation, would it be a kind of online tour where you actually narrated through virtual spaces rather than real spaces? So these are some.
You know something? You say that about this image, and I always thought that this image it's just my imagination kind of went that way. That, for instance, you go to like a supermarket and you've got an audio tour, and you hear somebody, and you see and you can hear a story being told about, I don't know, people who made these, I don't know, or picked these vegetables and how that kind of impacted their mental health, or people who made these clothes or whatever. That kind of tuning into their stories. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's exactly it. And the reason why we're doing these visuals is to actually find out people's interpretations and find out really what this means. And then we move forward with the ideas. So exactly. Is that the last slide, Rick? Because there's more. Then there's this idea of individuality. This is like two classic films mixed together. Make of this what you will. And in a way, it's about, in this world where I guess we've all suddenly become nodes on a network, how do we actually express our individuality? Are we even individual? Or do we actually think and feel the same things? So there's some of the other ideas. So yeah, so I guess the whole point of this, the whole point of today's discussion is to, like, how do we actually further some of these ideas, and what works for you as some kind of creative intervention that we could actually do and make happen. So yeah, how do we actually move forward from here? So has anyone got anything they want to get the ball rolling with? Any thoughts? Any response to the images, to the ideas?
If you want to say something, please raise your hand, the electronic hand. But also, if you want to say something kind of now, then you are welcome to just unmute yourself. But one of the things that we didn't that I quite liked from the last session was the shy pride, and also kind of like the idea of what is considered, you know, recovered and unrecovered, what is considered like ill or healthy in our society, and how shy people maybe are considered, oh, what's wrong with you, why can't you speak? That is not a prod to anybody. Hey, Silka. But yeah, just kind of reframes what is normal, what is not normal. But yeah, go ahead, Silka, what you want to add?
Well, unfortunately I've missed both previous sessions, but that sounds like amazing discussions and really interesting. But I'm studying mental health recovery at the moment, masters, and that's exactly the question which I thought I would ask here and see your opinions about whatever the full recovery from mental health issues is possible, because that is generally an idea of recovery, meaning the physical recovery, you can fully recover, but with mental health recovery, you can only recover to some degree of functionality. However, you are not ever able to recover fully. You have it for life, basically. So, which I disagree with. So,
what's your view on it, Silka? I mean, what do you think about this idea of recovery? Is it the right terminology even to talk about recovery? Because that's one of the things that we were saying last week, that it wasn't necessarily the right terminology to talk about recovery.
It might not be the right terminology in the first place. That's a good point, but it's kind of a terminology which has been in, you know, kind of arising in mental health services, especially in English-speaking countries, UK, US, and so on. And they try to apply mental health recovery approach within mental health services. However, in most cases, it's still a theory. And there is different approaches to recovery and so on. But so far, the whole idea of recovery still springs out from the idea that we can't really fully recover. So you can't just have like, okay, you healed now and you haven't got bipolar anymore or schizophrenia or something. You can recover to a certain degree to function. And so yeah, I suppose it might be wrong terminology in the first place. I'm not sure, because like English is not my first language. So yeah, I don't know what other better term to use for that, really, what we're talking about.
I mean,
thank you.
What is your first language?
Polish.
Luckily, we've got some qualified on this chat, so you know we could always go into Polish. And
well, I don't think it'll be fair on the rest of us.
Yeah.
Maybe another time.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? Okay, so I mean, when we're talking about recovery, do we need to sort of change the language? Do we need to change our understanding? Kieran, you've got a point?
It's Sulka. Just my own experiences, when I was about 16, I took an awful lot of LSD and developed what I'd say now I know is the classic symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia. But I did recover completely on my own. I mean, partly maybe because I stopped taking that drug, but nonetheless, I had a 6-month period where I believed every poster on the wall was printed for me and was trying to tell me something, you know, classic case. And I completely recovered. And years down the line, I now know, because my brother has schizophrenia, that that's exactly what it was. And I think it's terrible that people get pathologized for life. And my brother, again, had one psychotic episode about 20 years ago, but now he's permanently a schizophrenic as far as his psychiatrist is concerned. So I have grave misgivings about all that.
Okay, so...
Sharing.
We've got a point from Tracy as well.
Yeah. Tracy, coming in on this.
Mike.
Tracy, yeah, let me just...
Oh, yeah, you need to unmute yourself. So go to the bottom of your screen, to the left, and as unmute, and then we come to Kieran. Sorry, Christian. Even
sorry, guys. I'm unmuted now. Just saying that I'm not a mental health specialist, but what the word recovery suggests is that there is, obviously, for diagnosed mental health problems that are more acute and more obvious, there probably is a sense of what is desired to feel, and therefore the recovery is back to that normal, okay position. But if you have, if you're going through something that is circumstantial, say for example bereavement, and the mental health experience of that, it's like the circumstance doesn't change. So it's around, again, is it around you normalizing back? So you're not recovered from the circumstance, are you? That situation will still be there and still be painful. I'm just wondering, the word recovery probably is okay for really diagnosed, like schizophrenia or bipolar or things that are.
Is it a different thing, do you think, or is in the end is it this all part of the same thing?
This is the thing with mental health. I don't know enough about it, but feels like there's softer versions of it that, whether softer is the right word, or manageable versions of it, or versions that are more socially acceptable or socially understood, or more people seem to experience it, or I think it's, if you're not in the field.
Well, I'm not only in the field as a professional, but I've got personal experience and diagnosis of bipolar. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum. So,
Yes.
And I've been off medication and well without mood swings, and actually much better than I ever been before my mood swings before, for about 4 years now. Applying different techniques and so on and so on. So now the question is, I would like to go and have my diagnosis taken off my
Right.
Right.
But that's the case for, it's a low case, because
Why is it a problem?
Because I haven't researched that yet well enough yet, but I assume that it wouldn't be an easy thing to do.
Okay, we had a point from Christian, and
Okay.
then from Lucy as well on that.
Hi everybody. My point is about standards and experiences, because you mentioned before dysfunction and what is the norm, and this is open question to everybody as well. What we treat as an illness, and do we have capacity to embrace it, something what we as a society think in a wider spectrum as something abnormal, and as illness, if it's something mental or if something physical, or if someone can judge by himself, I feel not healthy, but maybe I feel okay with that, and I'm not.
So if we don't call it an illness, can we call it something else? Can we come up with a different terminology rather than an illness?
I had a conversation with yesterday with my friend about taking time for being ill, especially in this era now when everyone is kind of isolated or affected by it for different degrees. But take this time as well to not heal, but take illness as a state of mind, rather, just different experience of your being, because it's part of your being. We try to just very quickly heal ourselves, not take this time as a special time as well.
Okay, so is it also, I mean, this kind of comes back to some of the points we were talking about in the last session, that is it actually this kind of extremely fast and high pressured world that we live in that actually stops us from being able to heal and actually develop our mental selves, I suppose. Lucy, what was your point?
Well, a couple of points, but I should probably not go on too long. But the first one is just about language. That comes up a lot, I think, for me and the work at the team at the gallery. And and the artists that we work with, and it seems that it's very, very individual. So some people would call themselves mad when other people would take great offense at that. And it seems like experience tends to be the word that people fall back on, that creates sort of, that seems to be the only umbrella term that everyone seems to be all right with in general, but even then people can take issue with it. But yeah, I think sort of understanding that it's an experience for people, so whatever that is.
If we talk about this as a kind of experience, then that's something that everybody can agree with, and they don't, it's not as, let's say, controversial as either mad on the one side.
Yeah, but that always changes, and like we see when we talk about all sorts of different things, language changes all the time. And what I feel quite strongly about is that you don't want language to block anyone from being able to talk about it. So, for instance, what you often see is within generations, language shifts. And what you risk is alienating generations, whether it's the younger generation, whichever it is, from conversation, because the language has changed. And I think that that's important to think about. But I was thinking about what you were saying as well, Christian, about time. And I've been thinking a lot about time, and I think it sort of almost links as well with what Silke was saying, which is that there are moments where you can take that time. And we're seeing it now. We're giving each other so much more time. It would be so nice if we could carry on with that. But there are also, with illnesses, times when you have to make a decision really quickly. And I think that forces things through.
What is behind that urgency when things do have to...
Sometimes people's lives are at risk, or, you don't know. There's so many different moments, but it seems to be related to time and things like with the justice system, when you've got a lot of time to think through something more carefully, that's great. But there are also moments where people have to make a really quick decision for people's welfare, and that immediately creates quite a strain on the system, whether it's the medics making a quick choice, whether it's the justice system making a quick choice. And we need them there to make those decisions quickly, but it does make me worry. You kind of feel less comfortable with that than you do with a decision made with a lot of time behind it. I don't know whether that's fair.
Yeah, I mean.
But in the meantime, I just wanted to bring in a point from our Facebook Live, if I may. But we've got like hundreds of hands up, so. Yeah. Well, this is good,
and I just want to say, all of the people that have had their hands up have spoken already, and we would rather, not that we don't want to hear from you, but we would rather everybody that's on this conversation gets involved. So obviously there's going to be quieter people and more vocal people, but please do come into. We've all got something to say here, I think, in this. Anyway, what are the points coming from the live stream, Margot?
I just want to say, be shy pride and speak. Anyway, never mind. So we've got a point from Abby saying, I'm not an expert, but I do have trouble with the idea of personality pathology, which a lot of mental health diagnoses stem from. And I think she's referencing a little bit what Christian was saying about the language and what it is to be ill, and a little bit what Lucy was saying as well. So main point is personality pathology and what is that and how we talk about it.
Okay.
But yeah, we've got some hands up, and if you haven't spoken, give it a go.
Okay, right. So I'm in encouraging people. I managed to get a lot of people to lower their hands, which is kind of interesting.
Patrick, you were waving your actual physical hand. Were you trying to make a point?
I'm trying. This is the first time I'm using Zoom, so I struggle a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. You got a point, Patrick?
Well, yeah, I'd love to have a little.
Come on.
Go. Welcome. I mean, hi. I'm Patrick. This is my first time here.
Welcome.
For inviting me. I also suffer from bipolar disorder. I've been diagnosed about 7 years ago. It was a huge surprise to myself and everyone around me, and it's been quite a journey, I must say, because at some point I kind of considered it a little bit of a relief. So at least I knew what I'm dealing with, and there was help from the doctors. There was medication, which I think did help me to kind of come to a slightly more kind of calm phase. And I did have a couple of episodes since, but I still struggle. There are times where
yeah,
I think that I remember having this conversation with someone, and we came to this conclusion that maybe back in the days in the tribal era, I would be the shaman of the village.
Okay. So it would be a positive,
maybe,
a positive
having my
aspect.
Yeah, well, yes and no, because in this day and age, I do feel like a shaman or whatever, a prophet or what's not when I have my manic episodes. However, when I calm down, when I land on this planet again, I kind of realize that it seems like loads of fun, but it's just too much. It's just so crazy that without the help of the medical team, the psychiatric hospital, and the medication, I could just do things that wouldn't be as fantastic for me, I think. So at this stage, I kind of feel that I do need that. I do need that support, and I really I'm very thankful for that. As per the recovery, I don't know. At this stage, it seems like this is something I have accepted as a part of me, and hopefully there will be days where the periods between the episodes will be longer and the episodes will be a little less wild, and I do learn about it. That's something which I wanted to stress. At this point I wanted to stress that with time, I think we are kind of making friends with the condition that we were supposedly diagnosed with, and that seems quite encouraging as well.
I mean, my question is really, Patrick, is like this diagnosis and the talking about it as a pathology, is that helpful? Is it a burden? Is there a different way to understand this that would maybe be a bit more kind of, in a way, understanding the positive aspects or this kind of learning aspect of what you're talking about?
I would much rather do without it, to be fair. It feels like a bit of a burden, and
if you were described as a shaman rather than a bipolar person, would that be a better description, do you think?
I haven't done enough work on myself, and I believe there was someone speaking a little. There was a girl speaking a little earlier who is off medicine for 4 years, and she seems to be doing a lot of alternative.
More like a shaman in training, a sort of trainee shaman.
Maybe a little wannabe. Yeah. Why
do you
not?
want to be? Yeah. Okay, we've got some other people coming in here, but that's a great. Thanks for your input. That's great to kind of hear that kind of personal aspect of it. Kane, what have you got to say? Kane,
unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, it's just picking up on how, I guess, common mental health problems are. I think the statistic is that 1 in 4 people suffer from a mental health problem each year. And so I think it's changing the dialogue and just understanding that it's something that a lot of the population will deal with, obviously often on a less extreme scale, more around issues of anxiety and depression, but seeing it as something that is part of a lot of people's everyday lives. And I guess just reflecting that in how we talk about mental health. And I do think that is changing. And I think there is far less stigma nowadays around.
Yeah, so we can have a bit more of a conversation about it.
Yeah, completely. And I also think it's a bit like, having worked with disability-led company like Tourette's Hero, where they're, artists that are focusing on neurodiversity, of just how you celebrate it and see it as a strength as well at times.
When you say neurodiversity, what are you talking about?
I guess, that would be things like Tourette's, but also things like dyslexia as well, which has obviously got a strong link with creativity, and seeing these sort of more as potentially creative assets.
Okay. there's a few hands up, so let me just go. Kieran and Christian, I want to come to your points, but just because we've got a new face, we've got an image as well, actually. Maybe do you want to go to the image, Rick? Rick is trying to visualize the conversation as we go along and trying to take it out of, we're trying to solve in a way some of these problems of language by moving away from the purely verbal into a kind of visual sort of field. So make of this what you will. Something that the Derbyshire police have been discouraging us to do recently, to go out into the wilderness. But make of this what you will. Let's just come straight to Chelsea. Christian and Kieran, I've got you, but I want to just bring in Chelsea because you've not said anything yet. So come on, what have you got to say?
You need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I'm new to this as well. I only joined in today. Haven't been to the others. Yeah, just a few things. I guess when you showed the images earlier about kind of Instagram and social media and things like that, how that's booming at the moment. Like technology is just like accelerated so quickly, and has that therefore made mental health accelerate really fast because you're constantly, maybe comparing yourself to other people. But then also at the same time, the whole stigma, I feel like people are, because of social media and being able to share things and connect, especially now, how, maybe it's helped people talk about mental health more and be more open. And
yeah, so there's a kind of double side to it, really.
Yeah, I didn't know if there'd been a discussion on that, or nothing. It's more about, I think I'm here as well because obviously it came with my brother and Margot's part of it. But I'm really interested in like working with people and maybe eventually using art as therapy in the long run.
Right.
So being involved in this is really great.
Well, thanks for getting involved as well. I mean, I think we kind of talked about this before a little bit. I mean, obviously now everything's social media because we're socially isolating. But I mean, even in that word, social isolating and social media, we're distancing ourselves, but we're also coming together in a different way. So, I mean, I think it's really there, like, at least none of us have got the fear of missing out because we're all missing out at the moment. Social media gets the conversation going, but at the same time, there's a dark side to it as well, for sure, that makes us more anxious, more feel in one way, more of a loser because you just see all these wonderful things happening on social media. But also like you're connecting, but you're also disconnected. So how does social media play into this, especially in this time now?
I was going to say one thing that I feel, especially now, like you were saying before, it maybe people missing out because there's all these things you could be doing. Whereas at the moment, I feel like obviously overusing it all can be too much and you've got to kind of step away from it. But it's just been amazing seeing how people are coming together and, doing things like this on Zoom and how connected everyone is. So I'm seeing it in such a positive light at the moment.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to bring in a point from Oriana from the chat very quickly, if I may. Oriana shared a very interesting diagram about what healthy versus unhealthy looks like. So do check it out. It's in the chat. But she's also saying,
Oriana, do you want to share it on the screen? If you can work out how to do that.
I can try to share.
Or maybe Margot can do it. Okay, Kieran, you had a point, but you've lowered your hand now. Is it still relevant, or have things moved on? Oh, here we go. Okay. Well, before we come to Kieran, let's just have a look at this.
Oriana raised her hand, so maybe she can provide
explain this a little bit, Oriana, because
this is healthy and unhealthy as defined within cognitive behavior therapy or rational emotive behavior therapy. So basically, because the example of bereavement came up, bereavement, according to these norms within psychology, is it's normal for you to feel sad based on loss over in the healthy beliefs, healthy emotions. But if it goes into depression, that's when it becomes unhealthy or kind of abnormal bereavement. But unfortunately, I was trying to find the diagram where it says more about what makes them unhealthy, because it's like it doesn't give you enough. It gives you examples of how unhealthy emotions kind of express themselves versus healthy ones. But I mean, obviously, this is a normative framework that says.
I mean, how do we know when for just taking the top one, when concern becomes anxiety? Is there like an actual point, or is it just about how we choose to describe it?
Right. But can I just make one last point about it, though, is that just that I'm not sure how to put this, but because psychology and psychotherapy is very individualizing, it may be that you have every right to, every very good reasons to be depressed or to be anxious. And it's not necessarily your responsibility to change that, to do your work on yourself, to change that into the healthy version of those things. Obviously, we can all do that work on ourselves using various tools. However, it may point to the fact that there's a wider social structure that would be worth changing, that you need to work collectively towards changing, as opposed to just working on the self.
Okay, so you can only do a certain amount of work to the self, and there's wider issues to be addressed that might.
For example, like with transgender, like for a while, transgender was in the DSM. I always bring up the DSM. Or like
everyone knows what the DSM is.
Sorry, so the diagnostic or whatever it is, diagnostic something manual. I don't even know what it stands for. But it's the manual that doctors use to diagnose people as having certain pathologies or certain mental illnesses, and so transgender.
It's like a rule book for doctors.
The DSM.
Yeah.
But then they changed it, I think 2017 to gender dysphoria. So saying that if you don't identify with the gender you're pronounced at birth, that's a psychological illness. Then they changed it again to say that if you feel depressed or unhappy because you don't identify, that's the illness.
Yeah.
However, so I could be a transgender person and I don't feel unhappy about this. I'm proud of being transgender. I'm cured. I'm not ill. However, that doesn't change the way people react to you in the street. If you're not passing transgender person, or if you're a non-binary person, if you go out on the street, you could be beat up. So there's a wider structure there that might force you to feel bad or to act differently to protect yourself, whatever it is. So that's my example.
I mean, it sort of strikes me that there's like a little, almost like dictionary of mental illness that's struggling to describe an entire experience, and that's just one version of it, I suppose. Let's just get some other points. Kieran, did you still have a point, or is it gone now? Have we moved on?
No, I mean, just to sort of add another, dynamics to this, but I think it's been covered, is that it's interesting. A friend of mine's dad is a psychiatrist, South African psychiatrist, and we met a mutual friend, and he said, "Oh, they're depressed," and I went, "Yeah, they could really do with psychotherapy and like working out what's going on." And he was like, no, they just need to go on antidepressants. What are you talking about? I was going, no, it's completely the wrong approach. He was going, no, that will work. I would prescribe whatever, dihydrocortisone, something like that. And I think that the point is that he wants like the quick fix. This is what you do, and then she'll be fine. And I want the slow fix, which is like, let's offer them all psychotherapy.
Why do you want the slow fix?
Because I've seen it work so well on people with depression. And manic depression as well. It doesn't necessarily, my experience, it doesn't necessarily completely alleviate manic depression, but certainly helps people to level those two sort of, paradigms out.
I mean, I think Patrick was talking about this idea of learning and understanding himself, and like, I guess, being able to understand how your mind changes. And I suppose
I think it's very important to kind of find your own balance between the medication and the alternative ways of handling your mental health issues. And I have a lot of respect and hope and trust when it comes to, you know, the other options. I'm just a little, not scared really, but a little hesitant to give up my medication at this point, because I just don't want to go back to Gordon again. And so whilst I take my medication, I try to, you know, do other things and learn more and more about myself and other possible ways of attacking the condition that I happen to have. And I appreciate your point of. I remember reading this book about, you know, bipolar being a curse or a blessing, and I wonder. I mean, it's kind of all very intriguing and very interesting.
I mean, that gesture you're doing seems to be, it's kind of mixed up.
I'm still trying to find that balance for myself.
Right, let's bring in Christian on this one, because you had your hand up for a while.
He's gonna combust.
Yeah, go on.
I don't want to repeat things which were said, because they were very interesting and fair points. So adding to it, for me, the crucial point is dialogue, is to listen individual stories, because each suffering is very personal and then have own standards. If we compare this to society, and then quick recovery and being full capacity very quickly, and this is advertised today like being super healthy or even superhumans, but being a human is not enough, and then being or feeling down, that is not acceptable whatsoever.
It's almost like there's a kind of pit stop recovery where you've got like seconds, you know, like the car comes in and everything's got to be changed and you're out again.
Looking for shortcuts, so somehow medication very often become a shortcut instead of taking time. This is what I said earlier. But adding to it is I would like to hear expressions of people who feel different and then have kind of access into that world. Because if we say that's normal world, so I would like to understand as well. So what is your perspective? You mentioned earlier this audio tour about going into someone's state of mind, and I would like to have more of that, and maybe use art as a vehicle as well to enter different world. If someone is, as example, blind, or I would like to know how you perceive the world. If this is illness, of course, but you know, have there's different perspectives.
So that's a great point, and I think there's a consensus here about the question of time, and the world that we live in seems to be so kind of demanding of time rather than allowing things to happen and people to develop. Could this audio tour idea actually be a way of just having a bit more time, and how do these things connect? These are questions going out to all of you. Tracy, you've got your hand up. Once again, I want to say to those people that haven't spoken yet, please do come in. All of your points are really important, but also if you don't want to talk, you can also throw it in on the chat on Zoom, but also on the Facebook chat as well for hello Facebook audience. Okay, so Tracy, what have you got to say?
Oh, unmute. Tracy, to unmute yourself.
I've just done it, but I think it might be one of those. There we go.
Funnily enough, Christian, I was going to mention about the audio tour as well. But I think there was the insanity fashion conversation before, and I've got young adult children in my family, 18, 24 and 27. And as young creatives, it seems to be a lot of people in their peer group have suffered from various mental health problems, and there's been various suicides, etc. that, you know, impact on a whole generation and group of young people. I just feel, and this is about time, but also about culture. In my day, and this is me going back and having been brought up in a different country where things were talked about differently, you know, they're so sophisticated, young people, with so much language, so much knowledge, and almost oversaturation. particularly with like social media and everything else. And, you know, my daughter, who is 18, talks about, you know, body dysmorphia and these sorts of things, dysphoria, and, you know, when she gets spots on her face or legs feel slightly bigger or things like that. And I sometimes go into that, I sound like my father, you know, sort of get over yourself. Everybody has spots as a teenager. And, you know, trying to sort of understand that world and maybe having the audio tour type of thing.
Yeah.
It's culturally difficult. It's, you know, if you're trying to understand the different person's point of view, and it feels as I say, particularly younger people, they feel so sophisticated with their understanding and their language use. And I wonder sometimes, like, I wish it wasn't so complicated. But life has probably always been complicated. We just didn't talk about it and didn't have those resources and language and skills.
So yeah, we didn't really want to get ourselves into the nuance of each individual experience and really unpick it. And, you know, it was almost kind of, I guess, seen as indulgent to indulge.
Completely always felt like, you know, your dad would always say, get over yourself. That would be the phrase. And it would be about being indulgent.
Yeah,
you know, and that everybody goes through these things, just get on with it. Yeah, so I think there is some balancing out over time to be done, because I think still, you know, everything seems so complicated, and I just would prefer things to be a little bit less complicated but more understanding. And I guess you got to reach a peak and then you start to plateau out, maybe.
Okay, so we're dealing with this kind of complexity question. Kane, what have you got to say?
Hi. It was sort of, I guess it's sort of picking up on a few different points, and sort of going back a little bit to what Chelsea was saying, and also picking up what Tracy was saying. I guess, like, yeah, there's a lot at the moment that everyone has a lot of time, and there are really amazing ways that people are connecting using platforms like Zoom with each other, and probably having more time to speak to each other than they would normally. But I'm also aware that you know, that represents a big portion, but not everyone, and that there are people that are excluded, or you know, young people that if society was functioning normally, might be addressing mental health issues through interventions, be they from cultural organisations or elsewhere. And I guess I'm just worried about what happens at the moment, of how that actually is sustained online. Because I think, you know, people, it's the more engaged people, like, you know, if you look at all of the theatres that have been putting on live streaming, they're sort of, they're preaching to the converted, I think, to a certain degree. Yeah, they're probably widening their audience, but across a very sort of engaged, culturally minded segment. And I'm just worried that there's a lot of people that would normally be, you know, what we would call,
you know, I mean, we're actually
underrepresented, that are just completely left behind in all of this. And
we're actually trying to address this problem technically by trying to add on platforms and trying to mix in platforms. So I should say, we haven't quite done it yet, but we've been experimenting with, like, and I have actually got my phone connected to this system, so people can just ring in and talk to us. Zoom.
Oh, what's the number?
The number is +44 7961 365 375. Maybe you could write it in the chat.
Yeah, okay, but you need to say that again. I wasn't prepared. 40.
I don't know what my number is.
Don't remember, my God.
But anyway, we've got a whole load of new faces that have come in. So I'll just explain. I don't know where. I'll just do the very, very abbreviated version. We're talking about, in a way, the understanding of mental health issues. Is it useful to talk about them as a kind of illness? Is one of the points. Is our kind of rush to kind of fix people and recover people actually a symptom of the kind of time pressure of the world that we live in? And is that time pressure now gone? These are some of the questions we're coming up with. And the reason why we're having this discussion is because we're trying to come to a point where we can actually make a proposal for some kind of creative intervention that will be useful and helpful for this area. We've had a lot of points. I'm not going to go through them now, just because Most of the people have heard those already. That's where we are. So welcome. We've got a few new faces here. We've got Piotr, we've got Sunny and Amit and Naheen. Welcome.
And if you've joined now, then just to let you know, we are streaming it live to Facebook. So you have been live streamed. Your face has. But if you want to opt out, just turn off the camera. But and if you want to make a point, if you hover your arrow over the panel at the bottom of your screen where you've got participants, then you can raise your hand, and after you've made a point, lower the hand. But welcome, everybody. Can I bring in a quick chat that's happening on the actual chat?
Sure. What are you saying, Margot?
Can I bring in a little bit something that's happening on the chat?
Yeah.
Because Chelsea, you can probably explain that better. But you're asking about the chemicals imbalancing Jesus, how our brain works, and whether there's a problem in the chemicals that can restore how our mental health functions. And also there was a question from Facebook. Actually, that's to Kieran. Often both, and I wonder what she was referring to.
This was about the difference between the pharmaceutical approach to mental illness, which Kieran said was a quick fix, and the talking therapies, which Kieran felt was like something that would actually develop a person, and actually, it comes back into this question of time. Do we have the time to actually to do that? I think that was a point there.
And could I just add to that? It's going back to Patrick's thing. Which, it's not one versus the other. A lot of people do therapy whilst on medication. It's not a choice as such. So I wasn't saying.
I think you were saying,
I don't see psychotherapy as an alternative. By the way, I think there are other self-help stuff that's slightly alternative. I think psychotherapy is pretty established.
Okay.
And just very quickly, I think Tracy said goodbye, but just in case you are thinking about coming out of it, we normally ask for final thoughts. So do flag before you...
Don't just leave like Tracy did. She did it totally wrong. And
I will let her know.
At the beginning, if you're going to leave the conversation, please do say goodbye and give us a final thought. That's what it's all about. And I think we need to get Tracy back in to get a final thought from her. I missed that. There's too many things going on here. Anyway, so Lucy's had, luckily it's just a virtual hand, so she's not getting arm ache. But what's your point, Lucy?
No, I was thinking about what Kane was saying. I feel the same. I'm really sort of thinking a lot about all the people that aren't online or don't want to be online. And I was thinking about the thing that got brought up, I think, last time about the delivery service. And thinking about a lot of the artists we work with who I know can't get to unless it's sometimes by phone, if we're lucky. And then really we're relying on the post, I suppose, right now. And I don't know, poor posties, they've got enough on their plate, but if they could stop and have a chat at the same time, that'd be cool. Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of socially distancing and standing away from the door these days.
And they're not getting protected, and there's all sorts of stuff with them. But I keep thinking about that delivery and actually going to people's doors and how much we need that right now.
I mean, that was actually a point, and somehow it got dropped off of the sum up from the previous two conversations. It was this kind of like Deliveroo of art, like an art delivery service, a bit like Deliveroo or Uber Eats. I think Kane last
Kane's a pun.
It could be like an
champion of names.
Deliveroo service. But this was one of the ideas that was floating around that I think has definitely got wheels. But and we've had a thumbs up as well from Claire exploiting the technology.
I can't raise my hand.
You can't. Oh, you can't raise your hand.
No.
Okay. Have you got a point, Claire? Because you've not said anything yet. So
we were talking about a national art service as a sort of instead of the National Health Service. So I had a go at doing the logo.
Okay, you've done the logo already. Okay.
Can you see that? I have got tracing paper, so it's baking. Actually, it's back to front as well, isn't it, to the mirror view?
No, it's not back to front for us, just for you.
Okay, good. Yeah. Anyway, so I might do it just in the NHS blue and white.
Okay, well, I mean, it's also something that maybe like Rick could play around with a little bit. Would it be the same sort of typographic approach as the NHS? Would it be a different approach? This is something, you know, what would that logo look like? What would the brand identity of the National Art Service actually be like? And would it be like a delivery service?
Who would be the brand ambassadors, I wonder?
And
Just
then
usual Damien Hirsts and stuff, I don't know.
Hey, was there a point there from you, Silke? Let me just unmute you. Hang on a sec.
Silke's on the final thought, I think.
Oh, is it a final thought? Okay, hang on. Yeah, go on.
Yes, sorry, I need to leave. I have online tutorial for my university. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Loads of interesting points and ideas. And if you could maybe just mention, Margot, would be great about nutritional psychiatry, which I mentioned in the chart, because this is something which people, I think, could be interested in.
Say that again, Silke. What is this?
I was talking about, we had a little chat and people were talking about that the medication I used to bring chemical balance in the brain. However, I brought the point that there isn't actual research on what's happening biochemically in the brain when there is some kind of disorder, bipolar or schizophrenia. There isn't a research where they can't go in and say, oh yeah, this is what's happening wrong. So every medication you get is a thing in the dark and checking, oh, that work might not work. And they don't actually know how it works on the brain. This is all
yeah.
But there is nutritional psychiatry, a field which is pioneering in the US, where they use high doses of supplements to treat people with nutrition and to bring balance into biochemical balance into the brain. So that's there is a Dr. Walsh Institute. I typed it in the chat where anyone wants
links. Yeah. Okay. And just before.
All right. And thank you very much.
Just before you go, Silke, I know you need to get off to your tutorial, but what about in terms of like some of the creative responses, such as the art delivery service, the National Arts Service, the audio tours? I
think it's a brilliant idea. I use art as a therapy myself as much as possible, and I have lots of friends who are
where
artists.
do you think we should be taking this in terms of those ideas we've got so far?
I don't really know. I would have to think about it.
Okay, think about it and come back. We're going to do the next one on the 15th. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we've got a raised hand from Chelsea's had her hand up for a while. So what have you got to say? Chelsea?
Unmute.
She's gone now.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I've just been writing down a few things. We were talking about the whole persona behind a screen and how you can kind of be who you want to be. But could that be right now a positive thing? Could it make people feel more confident to talk about how they feel? And like, for example, with doctor's appointments, you can't go in, you can only do it over the phone. Does that, will that then allow more people that maybe wouldn't speak out before to speak out? And just about talking about and like getting people involved, just there's Grace and Perry that's offered to do an art course for kids, and there's Joe Wicks who's called the Body Coach, who's really good for kind of high intensity training. He's been doing free PE classes, and just about does this then therefore allow people who might not be able to afford it usually or not have the time normally to get involved because they're all free courses? Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, so there's all this kind of flourishing of creativity online and things happening online, including this, I suppose. Okay, so I mean, some of the people that haven't spoken yet, any points from some of these people that haven't said anything yet?
Cool.
Have we got Tracy?
Hi, I wanted to join in this, but I've only literally just linked onto it, so I'm a bit late.
Okay, don't worry. There's a bit of coming and going anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, my friend just gave me the link, so I've literally just come out of.
Yeah. Well, I'll just explain what we're talking about. In a way, we're kind of talking about mental health, justice, and creativity. And we're talking about, most recently, we've been talking about, do we actually give ourselves time or to actually heal ourselves or develop our mind? Do we live in a world where kind of time is on such a pressure? But now suddenly we've all got time, or we've got a bit more time. That's one of the things we're talking about right now. And yeah, there's you'll pick up the pieces as you go along. But just,
okay, cool.
Can I just check, Piotr? Do you want to say something? If you hover your mouse over the bottom panel of your screen and go to participants, you can raise your hand. So yeah, so do that, and then we'll come to you very shortly.
Piotr, I'll come to you in a second, but let me just come to Jill, because you've not said anything yet.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to pick up on a few things. It's a pity that young lady left, because she said people always make a recovery from physical illness. Well, that was not quite the case. People do have periods where their physical illnesses are much more severe, and they recover a bit, but they've still got such a... And quite a lot of mental illnesses are like that as well, where you're very ill, and then you make a recovery and you have a remission, a period of remission maybe for many, many years, and then that mental illness could come back again. And I'll just, I know Kevin did mention this, but sometimes the medication is essential for the person's safety or for other people's safety. So, so that doesn't exclude talking therapy and the time. So,
they can hear.
All I wanted to say.
Okay. So, what about this question of just while you're on the line? What about this question of the label? Is the label helpful once you've got that label of having a psychiatric disorder? Is that actually, can that actually be a burden or a kind of millstone?
I don't think it needs to be a derogatory label. If somebody's got high blood pressure, that's not a slur on them. So it does help if they should become ill again to know what they've had before, and you don't have to exhibit the label the whole time. That's not the thing.
Okay, so you don't think it's too much of a problem, that question of the label and calling this a pathology when it is, in your opinion, an illness like...
It's an illness, it's not
something
that's worthy.
It is an issue with a label. Oh,
it is an issue. Thank you.
Okay, you're saying it is an issue. Okay, but let me just hold on to that, because we've got a lot of people, new people. You're not a new person anymore. Sorry, Patrick. We've heard from you.
Bye.
But let's bring Piotr, because Piotr's worked out how to do the raising hand, and we're bringing Bernice in a second. Piotr, what have you got to say?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I didn't join from the beginning. I just joined, I think, when Patrick was explaining his point of like medication and stuff. And just coming back to your last question regarding the label, I think it is the like very serious point regarding label. Like, we can look into this from different points as well. In your own circle, in the circle of your friends, if you tell them or that you have some kind of disorders, I think it will be helpful for you, as like you're not like hiding something, or you try to this is kind of, you are working on yourself in this way, or you're not working on yourself, you're not hiding. Yeah.
I mean, have you got personal experience of this, Piotr?
I know some friends who got some depressions, and they doesn't want to share this with their family. They more likely keep it by themselves, for themselves, because they thought they will try to treat them differently. They try to keep them on the side slightly. So this is one point. But the other point is your work, where you are working. So I don't think you would. I mean, of course, you when you are going for the interview, for example, and you don't need to say that you got this, but this is your problem, this is your problem, this is your problem. But later on, when you will be working and you start explaining to your co-workers, oh, you cannot do that because this is your problem, this is your problem. This will be. It will start to be a problem within your workplace.
I mean, what about this question of like I guess they're hiding it because they're anticipating a negative response.
Yeah.
So is that a reality? Is that
Yes, it is reality. It is reality. I think the people still doesn't understand mental health enough. Right now, the mental health, that all the knowledge is going out because of the social media, because of the internet. I think before that, even like our parents wouldn't understand the mental, like if someone would have the problem like depression, they say, okay, he's got some mind problem. There's
a little bit of an uncharitable kind of understanding of mental health.
Yeah, exactly. And because of now everything, like internet is spread widely, we have social media. It's going, it's make people more aware about the situation, but still, it isn't enough. As well, like I think Tracy spoke about she's got the kids and she's worried about their health when they are growing. But this is part. I mean, this is part of the growing. The growing isn't.
So it's actually a natural part of life.
Yeah, exactly.
The anxiety and the mental health is actually part of life, and it's a natural, normal part of life, I suppose we could get.
Exactly. Yeah. And right now, I think the parents should be educated in the way how they could see the problem actually exists, because right now the social media, the most of the social media using are the kids, and I have the kids as well, and I'm worried. I mean, there are lots of movies as well around that. I mean, I'm not sure if you heard about Polish movie Sala Samobójców, Suicide Room, where actually we are. I mean, parents are the protector of the kids. If they will lose the contact with their children,
it's quite an anxiety causing thing, and also it's so important to have that contact and have those kids feel like they can have that conversation. Let's bring in someone who I believe is a parent, Bernice, and I guess we're talking about this question about actually being able to have that conversation. Bernice,
hi,
welcome.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Kane, Sunny, and Chelsea's mum.
Okay, so you've got a lot of kids in the room here.
Yeah, which is really nice actually to all be together. It's quite unusual. So I was always actually quite averse to all this tech stuff, social media. I don't do Instagram or Facebook or anything. But I'm really pleased that I've been helped to how to do this Zoom thing, and we've also had our WhatsApp video groups going, which is really important. And I was just thinking, actually, it's very interesting because, people have got their phones on them all the time, and in the past, before we had this coronavirus crisis, you'd see groups of kids in the park and they weren't communicating with each other. They would be just on their phones, I don't know, doing whatever. And it's really interesting that hopefully, and I'm sure now what they're doing is communicating with each other. And one can only hope that that once we get through all of this, that when we come together physically again, that we will actually interact with each other where we are, rather than a virtual world. And also, you know, hoping that this time that we have to just slow everything down and, you know, give ourselves more time to think and take control of how we react and how we feel, that hopefully we'll have a kinder society at the end of it all.
Okay, well, that's a really good question, and I think we can put that out to everybody. When the gates are open again and we're allowed to walk back out, will it be different? Will we be acting? Will we have benefited from the time that we've had to slow down? Will we, at the same time, will we still have that anxiety that a lot of people have talked about over this session? How will things kind of go? Yeah, will we appreciate each other more? And is it that kind of pause in our global system that we needed to have? Where do we want to take this? So just to say as well, we've only got like half an hour left, and the real kind of impetus of this is to turn this into some kind of creative intervention, turn a lot of this chat into, how can we actually respond to this creatively? Was there a point from you down there, Tracy?
Yeah, I'd like to just go back. I know it's sort of you've moved on to the moving on society after this virus, but I've literally just come out of hospital from my mental health, and going back to the point about having a label. A label is all well and good for friends and for you to help, but sadly I've got EUPD, emotional unstable personality disorder,
right?
And I find that the medical team are actually using labels in an incorrect manner, in the sense that they feel that hospitals are wrong for people that have got my diagnosis.
Right.
Throwing a label at somebody in that sense, although I actually agree I have got unstable personality disorder. However, the doctors believe that hospitals and places like that are not right for people with my diagnosis. And I find I had many discussions with the medical team, because I find that the team were saying, and that they're putting everyone under an umbrella, and I think it's really wrong. But they feel like, if you've got that disorder, you shouldn't be in hospital. So having labels like that, where actually the medical team are not using the labels correctly, is really wrong. I just wanted to get that point out. Sorry, because it's just really, because I've literally come out of hospital Friday. I should still be in hospital because of the viruses.
Right. Okay. So you didn't actually want to leave, but you're kind of pushed out because of the virus situation. Is that what?
Yeah, because of the virus situation. Because I was on. They actually thought that I did have the coronavirus. Fortunately, I haven't. I am back home now, and it's really hard because my husband's had to now come out of work. He's actually a key worker. He's actually had to come out of work to be my carer, because I'm not left alone. So having the virus and I find that the medical team literally are struggling to cope with the physical and mental health of people at the same time. They can't. The medical profession can't do that.
There's so many directions we could take this in, Tracy. We could talk about.
Sorry, I'm just a bit frustrated at the moment, because it's all.
It's all good stuff. I mean, there's a question about the label. Is it? I mean, to a certain extent, you're saying the label's helpful to you to understand yourself.
Yeah.
But it's also the interpretation of that label by the medical staff that is unhelpful. So
they are really struggling to deal with because it's now the virus has thrown the medical system totally, and I'm 100% key to that, because I am evidence of what they're doing, that they cannot cope with the virus and people with mental health, and sadly it's going to affect people's mental health.
Well, that's
to
the other
such a
side
poor
to
extreme.
That's the other side to it, which we could also go, and it's kind of up to you where you want to take this. I notice, Amit, you've got your finger up. Can you not do the electronic hand raising thing? No, not sure how to do it. We should do a little workshop again, I think.
I need one. I'm very new to this.
But
I would just say that I will just say that Christian is gonna scooch apparently, so we may want to bring you in for last.
Before we come to you, Amit, let's get a final thought from Christian before you go. And I want to say this to everybody that's just joined and maybe didn't join at the beginning. If you are going to leave, just say goodbye to us and just give us a final thought before you go. Christian, what's your final thought?
So just refer to labeling. It can be helpful to understand, but also it's really difficult to have a right. Once is a bit like a spell. If you have a right spell, can work, but if you don't have a right spell, can be misleading. And also finding a right name for ourselves is very, very difficult. And it's very subjective as well. But also how to own it, because we talk about dialogue and then personal experiences. But that comes with understanding. I come to the same point, live through it, and then to understand over time, not go into shortcut, not go into speed recovery if it's not possible, or become part of your personality as well. In some cases.
Okay, so
this who you are. So I don't know if there's so much pressure for recovery.
I mean, I guess the point as well is like there's just as much time to talk of, you know, a label is a very quick thing as well, just the same as the drugs. And actually could be something that develops over a long period of time and has got a very nuanced and individual kind of feel to it.
And I think Lucy is leaving us as well. So Lucy, can leave your final thought with us now or in chat or however. But I mean, we'll come back to you, so don't.
I'm going to head off. I was thinking about the time thing again, but just that, so, I mean, I don't know whether we think time is a luxury or not, but if we do we have to be a bit careful about what we create here, that we're going to create some kind of luxury product for everyone, an arts product that's seen in the luxury market, or do we want to create something that is for all and doesn't teeter into being seen as that?
Well, I think it comes back to Bernice's point about what are we going to be like when we come out of this, and will we suddenly be demanding and expecting to have more time because that's how we've been doing things, and will we actually be, you know, much more kind of vociferous about making that time for ourselves, or will we just go straight back into the rat race? All right, you're not going to answer that question, Lucy, but I can put it out to the rest of the group here. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Amit, that's had his hand up for a while. So come on, what have you got to say? I'm just going to unmute.
Hey.
There you go. You go. Hey, Amit.
Hi there. Yeah. I'm not on my phone. I'm on the laptop today, and I can't quite find out how to raise my hand. That's why I haven't done that. But yeah, sorry, I came a bit late to the conversation. I'm 4 hours behind you, so it's kind of I just woke up. It's about 9:30 in the morning here. The whole thing about labels, mental health. I work in mental health. I'm a psychotherapist. I don't diagnose. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not medical. It's always kind of a really important thing to think about, I think, because, you know, it can be helpful and it can be unhelpful. A label is a way to get an understanding of something that you may be struggling with, but it also can be a trap. It can be a trap in terms of thinking that's what you are forever. And, you know, these things, I mean, I've said this before, I think probably in, you know, previous Talkaoke and mental health, these things can
evolve.
Well, not evolve. They can get stuck. It can get stuck. It's the opposite of evolving. You know, you have that diagnosis, and then that's it for forever or something. Or it's very, very difficult then to get it changed. And these diagnoses overlap. And when is it, you know, borderline personality disorder? When is it trauma? You know, diagnosis. These things are. It's yeah, it's both a help and a trap. And it's like,
is there a way to make the label more helpful? Is there a better way of labeling that would kind of escape some of these things, or maybe put a time limit on the label or something like that? Or
yeah, I mean, yeah, and why should these labels be forever? I mean, I think these things, it's pretty difficult to get a diagnosis change once it's been given to you. The other thing, you know, working with clients, a lot of people don't actually know that they've been given a diagnosis. A lot of people I've worked with, they may be given
so it's kind of like in the notes,
and they haven't even been told by the doctors, you know. Yeah. And then at some point they find out, and it's a huge shock. So I don't know how helpful these labels are. I think.
Yeah. So you're a bit ambivalent about the labels, really.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have a position either side. But
can I just ask, as a psychotherapist, if you get passed on a label or a diagnosis, whatever you want to call it, are you able then to say to the patient, you've got this diagnosis?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the way that I work with my clients, we don't necessarily find out what the diagnoses are. We're you know, it's really they come and join our kind of the groups that we run, NHS groups, and they let us know whatever they want to let us know about their own.
So you don't necessarily have that information yourself?
No, and that's how we set the service up that I work for. It's about giving a bit more empowerment to our clients.
Right.
And this thing of the label can be used by the professionals to kind of control in some way, you know, the clients. And yeah, there's a lot of empowerment taken away with these labels, I think.
Okay, well, I mean, that's also a question that we can spread out to the rest of the group. I will say we've only got about 25 minutes left. Like, what about this question of empowerment, especially when it comes to creativity? Can creativity be a vehicle for empowerment? Are there other ways to be more empowered within this system? Let me come to Kane. You've had your hand up for a while. Kane?
I guess I'm sort of coming back. I mean, the point you mentioned just now about how you empower people is really good. And I guess I'm coming back a little bit to this question of, you know, what does the world look like at the end of this? Do we revert back to our old ways? But I also guess, like, you know, my mum had quite a optimistic view in terms of hopefully it opens up better connections between people. But I guess there's also the more negative side of just how potentially difficult the world might be if, you know, we are at the brink of a global recession, and what that does in terms of mental health, especially if, you know, I think there was the news yesterday that they reckon over this period charities are going to lose it was some outrageous number. I can't remember if it's 4 billion or 400 million in the UK in terms of lost income, things like London Marathon, and the fact that we might just see a contracting of the sport available.
Okay, so I mean, this going back to this idea of the economy, is the economy itself in a kind of bipolar situation where we've got the manic phase where we're going super fast, and then we've got the depressed phase where nothing's really going on. So I mean, are we going to be in that depressed phase when we come out of this?
I've got a couple of points from the other media, if that's okay. So I've got from Abby on Facebook Live. So agreeing with Lucy, that time is luxury often. Time is money, and capitalism makes us all have to make money to survive. Survival in that way is often counter to good mental health. So time is money, I like that. And then one is parting thought from Piotr, who had left us, but he left a final thought, so don't despair. Okay. Piotr's leaving us on the final question is about what kinds of labels would be useful or important then? What if you would get more labels than one?
Yeah, okay. So
it would be more scary if you suddenly got loads of labels on you. And I mean,
trying to solve this labeling problem, and I think we've got some really interesting sort of insights in how to do this.
And we're also debating whether you can ever have ownership of lack of purpose. Having ownership and a grasp on yourself and having purpose in life, are the two similar things, or can they be complementary? And that's a point from Sonny. So Sonny, if you feel like you want to expand on that, do give us a smile or something, or a wave.
Okay, yeah. Well, we've got a different change of camera angle, and it's nice to see Tracy as well. Has turned her camera on, so we can
hey Tracy.
Hello, Tracy. Let me come to Kieran though, because Kieran's had his hand up for ages. And what was your point, Kieran?
Well, I just wanted to bring 2 points together. Jill's saying that labelling is important, and Amit's thing about finding surprises in your medical records that you didn't even know. I once read my medical records, and it said when I was 16, it said, a rather neurotic homosexual worried about his bowels. But it turned out I had celiac disease, in fact. So, I think labelling needs to be looked at, and also the shock of what the doctors are actually saying about you when you read your medical records. I think that was it, really. I just wanted to add that.
Okay, well, that's a point. There's an insight, I guess, from both sides, from the medical side and from the, let's call it the patient side, but I don't know if we're using that word anymore. Okay, Patrick, I'll come to you in a second, Amit, but Patrick had his virtual hand up for a while. So let me come
I found it, yeah.
Yeah. Go on, Patrick.
Oh, well, yeah, you were saying something about the art classes and the art therapy. I do remember when I was, when I ended up at the Gordon for the first time in 2003.
Yeah.
13. It was absolutely a part of that experience was amazing, because there were art therapy classes throughout the day, from morning to late afternoon. Pretty much every hour was filled with some sort of activities. I fell in love with pottery. There was music therapy. There was painting. There was gardening. There was so much stuff going on. When I was there in 2018, the only thing I did in the week was 45 minutes of sitting in the garden with someone talking about plants, and that was it. So I would love if there was more of this sort of approach where you can actually channelize that energy, particularly the manic energy, but not only. I mean, all sorts of energy.
What is stopping that from happening, Patrick?
That's money. Pure. I mean, I had a very honest conversation with the gentleman who was there for both my visits, and he said that the cuts were just insane. They've closed one floor. They have no money to pay the therapists, and they can so basically just walk up and down the corridor and just go crazy.
Yeah,
even more crazy. So that's one thing about the labels. Just to I kind of find it again. It can be a bit of a safety net in terms of the fact that if you want to, like, I know I have a bit of a hotline with my psychiatrist, and I know that having that diagnosis gives me an access to my psychiatrist.
Okay, so it gives you a kind of like straight in, messing.
It's not like 24/7, but almost. Like I call him like almost every day, and if there is a need, I can actually be, looked after. So that's the only kind of pro. I mean, maybe the access to medication and stuff. Apart from that, I was begging everyone to get some sort of, because I have my diagnosis, I was dying to get into therapy on the NHS. In the last 7 years, I didn't get even a single hour of psychotherapy on the NHS. In terms of relationships, it was a bit of a stigma. Still, like when you meet someone, there's a moment when you kind of get a little closer, and you feel that tension. Shall I say it now, or shall I say it next time? And then you say it, and it's all PC and it's cool. It's like, of course, I don't mind, and blah. But then and you feel that there's a little bit of a, there's something going on there. In terms of work, I've lost one of, yes?
No, my question is, can we do, and it's the same that I've put to everybody, can we do better with labeling? Can we actually improve?
We have to. That's a part of, I mean, I kind of, like, I don't know if I was to describe myself. It became, I think it is now an important part of my personality, my condition, my history, and it's evolving. I look at it differently. My family, my friends, they are all, supportive, and then it's changing. It's like growing on me. Like, it's not as prominent maybe, but it's a very important part. And the fact that I don't drink anymore. I go out a lot, but I don't drink. I don't take drugs because I know it's not good for me. So I made that decision.
Right.
That impacted my lifestyle as well. I try to look after myself. I try to sleep a little more regularly, even though I'm not really successful there, etc., etc. Another thing which also I don't like is that I have to renew my driving license every year because they think I just have to. So there's a lot of drama there as well.
Okay, so there's
things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so it's quite a big thing, this label. I'll put this question out to all of you. Can we do it better? Can we have a better way of doing this labeling? Just like Patrick has to renew his driving license, should the label have to be renewed every year? These are some of the things. Could we have like a multiplicity, like a whole deck of cards when not just one label? These are some. Let me bring in, I mean, I know you've got your hand up, but I want to bring in Sonny because he's not actually said anything yet. And I believe that he can say things. So Sonny, come in and tell us what you got to say.
Hi. Firstly, I want to say, like, congratulations to the last chapter who's talking on the decision to stop taking drugs and drinking. That's really impressive and not that easy to do. So well done on that.
Thank you.
The other thing, in terms of labels, one of the issues with human nature, I feel, is that we want to put everything in a neat little box, tie a ribbon on it, and say this is what you are. Whereas there's so many grey areas, and like there's not enough words and labels to be able to describe someone, and giving people loads of labels doesn't necessarily help. And equally, our understanding, like not necessarily doctors' understanding, but the general population's understanding of what the labels mean could do with improving as well, not more so probably than the labels themselves, because people feel like, oh, okay, this guy has, one of my friends has psychosis and stuff, and people think that's that his whole, people think that's him now. That's a part of him, but it doesn't necessarily define him. At the time when he's in psychosis, yes, it might define him, but generally speaking, it's not something that is hugely prevalent. But that was one thing. It's just like the labels thing is fine in terms of using.
Well, I'm going to put the same question to you, Sonny. Could we do it better? Is it just how it has to be, or could it be done better? Either the understanding of the label, or the words we use, or the time frame of the label, any of these things?
Yeah, of course. I feel like, of course, it could be done better, because at the moment there's so much stigma with the labels, and I think just general education of like the population would help greatly to be like, look, actually, yeah, these people have mental health and need help, but it's not necessarily the be all and end all of that person. There's so much more to them than just this one aspect of their life. And I think that by putting labels on people, which is great for people in the health profession, so they know like what they're dealing with when they've got someone, it's like quite an easy way to kind of begin a conversation with a psychiatrist or whatever.
It's a good icebreaker.
Well, yeah, a weird icebreaker, but I mean, it's just helpful to kind of get things moving without having to kind of say too much to begin with, as the previous man was saying. But I mean, generally, it's not. I feel like maybe these items are given too much weight in like when it's taken out of that context.
So in a way, it's more about the culture than the labeling itself. It's about how we deal with labels.
Yeah, and like, I just think it's our need as humans to be able to put everything into a specific place to try and understand it. Whereas obviously there's a huge spectrum of things. Like, yes, two people might have the same label of disease or like of label of mental health issue, but they could be reacting with them in completely different ways, and it could be hugely prevalent on someone else, but on the other person it could be a very minor thing. So
okay,
I mean,
let's bring in Amit onto this. So, thanks for being patient there, Amit.
That's right. I was thinking a few things. I was thinking, you know, on when you talk about things rather than people, things which have a label, like you go to a shop and everything's labelled. That label's only there for you to kind of identify what it is. Once you've got it and you know what it is, you don't need the label. You know what it is. So like, I don't know if this quite works with people and diagnoses.
It's almost like a wrapper that you can throw away once you've kind of...
Yeah. You know, you go and you buy a bunch of bananas, it's got a label on it, probably, bananas. But you don't need that label, you know what it is. Once you've tasted it, once you've seen it, smelled it, you know what it is. You don't need that label anymore. You don't keep needing to go, this is labelled a banana. I mean, I don't know if that's a bit of a fatuous point, why not? The other thing I was thinking about labels is, why not, I mean, this is just off the top of my head, but why do we have to give labels to people who are unwell? Why not everybody in society, once they get to the age of 20, 25, 30, whatever the age, once they're an adult, everyone gets 5 diagnoses. Whether you're like really unwell, whether you're completely stable, we all get that. Okay, so whether you're functioning, high-level functioning, or whether you're a complete mess, whatever your personal situation is, we all get given these labels, and we all have to, and we get a few. So it's not like a sort of I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit silly, but why these? Why don't we all get these labels? Because we all have slight. We all have a range of difficulties in our.
Yeah, I'm labeled
in how we are, how we see the world.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm a Pisces.
You're a Pisces.
Yeah.
That's a terrible thing to have around your neck, Mikey. I know. I don't know how you managed to live with that.
Got it.
If I could just say a couple of things. One other thing. Time. We've been talking about time, use of time, and I was thinking even time. This is a label, and we've seen it in this lockdown. Time's become kind of almost irrelevant. It doesn't matter if it's Wednesday, Friday. What day is it today? Tuesday? I don't know. No, it's Wednesday, isn't it? But these are labels. They're kind of irrelevant at the moment, aren't they? So
yeah. So
in many ways, we're kind of seeing that in some ways. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a way, it seems like we've got more sort of food for thought than we've actually coming up with, with answers. We're more coming up with even more questions. But Oriana, I saw you had your hand up, but then you took it down. Have you still got a point there?
I just thought I really love that idea of everyone gets labels. I just love that idea. But it also reminds me of a student of mine wrote her BA thesis about a new model for disability. And specifically for, to replace the meetings that disabled people have to kind of get their benefits. They're very, I have not had one, but apparently they're very degrading. And but her idea was that everyone has different abilities in different spheres, and they get better and worse as time progresses. You change, and therefore we should just, the principle of her new model was just that everyone has this kind of diagnostic experience with a person who's trained in giving out these assessments of your abilities. And I don't know, anyway, I thought ultimately what was the solution was universal basic income, which we talked about last time. But just in keeping with that idea of everyone getting labels, because that would then destigmatize and normalize labels if everyone had them.
Okay. Well, I'm just realizing that we got a thumbs up there from Amit. I guess you're just kind of like bigging each other up, really. But we've only got like 10 minutes to go. So we're going to have to start kind of collating and collecting the final thoughts for this session. I just want to say, Rick, have you got any more illustrations? Well, it's just one's about to emerge. You're not going to get it done in time. Maybe we'll see. But I just once again want to say that, how do we turn this into creative intervention? It's good to have this conversation, but we could go further and actually make something happen to this. We've got these ideas. How does the discussion we've had today inform some of our ideas, like the Claire's National Art Service? Would the art service be using labels? There's a question there. What do we think of, how do we react and respond creatively to the discussion we've had today? It's maybe time to get final thoughts, and I'd like to get a final thought from everyone. There's a couple. Are you ready for some images? Because I am ready. So Rick's just gonna.
And also, Sunny is going. So
Oh, okay.
maybe you can leave your final comment, Sunny, in the chat.
Or if you just give us 2 minutes, we'll just go through the images.
Or wait 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look at what you've got, Rick. Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. What this is? Oh, Shaney Trayman on the tube as well.
Shamey Trayman.
Trainee
Trayman.
There we go. A bit of a spoonerism going on. A trainee shaman on the tube. Why on the tube, Rick? Okay, going about everyday life. Okay, that's a nice image. And this is like the doctor's kind of happy with his sea of pharmaceuticals, but is the service user that happy, drowning in a sea of capsules there? So that's quite a nice one. Any more, Rick? One more. Okay, this is the Deliveroo for Arts. Can we come up with a better name for it? We've got quite a selection. Someone's put in a big order there. So these are some of these things like to try and stimulate your imagination here as we go into the final intense 10 minutes where we'll try and move on with some of these ideas. Let me just come to Sunny because I know you need to leave. So Sunny, have you got a final thought for us? Sunny, let me, yeah, go on.
I don't really have a final thought because I'm not. I feel like getting the arts involved in mental well-being is hugely important because it's such an inclusive thing. Anyone with any sort of ability can get involved, and I mean, I think it's a great thing to be pursuing. But I'm not entirely sure what the best way to go with it is. And
do any of these suggestions or ideas that we've got floating around that we've kind of put out there today, do any of them kind of chime with you, or would you want to develop them a bit more?
I mean, the ones in terms of like getting art out to people during the lockdown is an interesting thing because obviously, it's something that I hadn't really thought. Obviously, you're thinking about the mental well-being of the population as a whole, but actually, I hadn't really given too much thought to the mental well-being of people who already have mental health issues. Obviously, their feeling of disconnect at this moment might be more severe than ours, and just trying to create something that gives them a sense of purpose, makes them feel involved in something is hugely important. I don't know what that should be though, but yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed being part of this and being able to hear everyone's thoughts, so thanks for the invite today.
Okay, we're going to be back in 2 weeks' time on the 15th of April, so there's also time as well to think about what
I'll give it some thought.
What the creative response might be. Okay, let's just get, thank you, Sunny, let's just get final thoughts from everybody. If it is Naheen, have you got anything to add? Oh, we've just lost Naheen. Just run away there. Scared them away. Let's just get final thoughts from everybody, and you know, especially with the mind of like, how do you see the ideas as they are now, and how can we actually push these forward and make it into reality? Let's not worry too much about the question of money at this point, but more the question of like what would work and be really useful and fun and deliverable. So Jill, can I go to you first? Have you got any final thoughts?
I haven't really got any good ideas. I need time to think about it.
Okay.
I think an easily accessible venue for people to just drop in and do art would be really good.
Yeah. I mean, what about in the isolated world where we're all at home? Could it be an online venue?
I suppose so, yes. Why not?
Okay. Thanks very much.
Really good.
Let's move to Claire. What's your final thought, Claire?
I've thought of a national psyche service. So the P could be psychiatry, pathology. I just wanted a short word instead of mental health.
Yeah. Okay, so would be different from the National Health Service?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say? Any ideas that have chimed with you? Any thoughts that you've come up with during this particular session?
I'm just thinking of like art equivalents or psychological equivalents of typical medical things like health checkup, CPR, stethoscope. I just want to start visualizing what the equivalents would be.
Okay, what would this equivalent be if in a way it'd be a kind of split, I suppose, from the National Health Service, the NPS. But these are all, I mean, we've also got the kind of the Facebook page, we've got the chat, maybe some of these ideas and the graphics that you're working on, if you don't mind, throw them into the chat so we can see them and share them with the other participants. Okay, Kieran, give me a final thought. If you've got one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we could learn from this is that at the end of this, maybe we should do a mental health screening of everyone. And like, the one thing we have learned is test. And maybe we'll find out that half the population have got mental health problems, which will make everyone else feel a bit better. And then possibly the art scheme could be psychiatrists, psychotherapists and artists working together for the prescriptions for those people, because they're obviously not acute, because they haven't been like to our doctor about it. They've got mild symptoms. So we'll diagnose different art things, right? You're right. You need to do painting. You need to do acting. You need, or not you need to, but here you go. And get artists collaborating in a very creative way of how to deal with it. There we go.
Okay. Patrick, final thought? Let me unmute you if I can. Go on. Yep.
Well, thank you. This was amazing. I was thinking about something in the spirit of the Radical Fairies, like a safe space, that's totally non-judgmental, where you can walk in and do whatever you want. Of course, you can take part in the art therapy classes. If you just want to be there and lie on the floor in the corner, that's also fine. Nobody would mind. I quite like that. And maybe for those who suffer from depression or those similar conditions, who are at home and just want to stay under the duvet. Like I remember in such days, I would love for someone to come to my home, to my space, and do a little painting class with me for an hour. That would be fantastic. So something like that would be brilliant, the delivery idea.
So this delivery service could actually work quite well.
I think it's brilliant because in certain cases you just don't feel like leaving your bed. Forget about leaving your bedroom. So why not? That could work.
Yeah. Any other final points? Anything that anyone else has said that's chimed with you?
I've really liked it. Thank you.
Well, good. Thanks. You've a great contribution. Thanks very much. And as I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks from today. Oriana, give us a final thought.
I really enjoyed today, as I did last time. And my final thought is just that I think some of the things that we're thinking of probably already exist, maybe. So I'm just wondering, maybe whatever it is that we end up doing, maybe there should be some kind of resource compiled of existing things that do the kind of thing.
I mean, in a way, what you're saying, and what we could even do for our next session on the 15th, is actually look in to see, are there similar initiatives out there, and actually see how well they've done, what the problems they've kind of come up with, and how we could, give our own twist to them. So there's definitely some research to be done there for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything that anyone said that's particularly struck you as a good comment?
I mean, I already said that I love the idea of everybody having a diagnosis, no matter what.
So let's go heavy on the labels. Instead of running away from them, let's just have many labels. But labels for all, we can call it, I suppose, can't we?
Oh, right, because I was thinking as we were talking about it, but nobody said, but there's a, reclaiming of negative labels. So like queer, for example, and there's mad pride and shy pride. So there's already a bit of kind of positive spinning going on with labels.
Okay. Kane, final thought?
Hey, no, that was a really, really great session. It's sort of just picking up on the National Art Service that we didn't talk about loads today, but just in terms of reaching people that, are more isolated in this period. And I'd just be interested to know, maybe it's something to pick up next time, of just like how many artists have volunteered for the National Health Service's volunteering scheme, and if there's ways in which we can sort of infiltrate that to bring a bit of art into people's lives as well as important deliveries. Okay,
could we actually bring some art into this national service that's happening at the moment, the national voluntary thing going on? How's it going to work? Okay, all good food for thought, and things we can think about, we can all think about over the next 2 weeks. Bernice, final thought? Hang on, let me just unmute you. Hang on. Where have you gone? I've lost you. Oh, here we are. Yeah, go on. Oops.
Have you unmuted me? Yeah, sorry. I don't know if it's a final thought, but with all this of us being you know, isolated from each other, that we've got to think more out of the box and be much more creative. Yeah, and that the idea that of the national health actually pointing people in the direction of art and how that can help, to me, is better than immediately, you know, dishing out pills. You know, medication has, you know, is obviously the right thing for some people, but yeah, just being creative and helping people. Because I think when it's like doing a physical exercise, also when you are creative, I think it kind of takes you, releases you from maybe pain you're feeling in your head. Anyway, thank you for this. It's been very interesting.
It's been a great chat. It's a shame we have to end it now. I mean, my brain is just kind of overloaded with ideas right now. So, you know, I think if we went on much longer, yeah, well, probably Rick would be the one to suffer. Okay, so who have we not had a final thought from? Amit, have you got a final thought for us?
Yeah, a couple. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, probably dedication more than medication is would help. You know, a nice little rhyme there. And the other thing I was thinking is that you know, this idea of I think it's like functioning psychotics, or this idea that the people who have a diagnosis of psychosis, or people who, you know, that they do something psychotic episode or something, this is a tiny fraction of the number of people out there who have psychotic thoughts and who are absolutely fine with their psychotic thoughts because you know, they're out, they're doing what they, you know, they're functioning in society, they're whatever they need to be doing, their thoughts. So yeah, we all pretty much all of us have this in us, have some kind of, and there's a whole majority of people who are out there kind of with this kind of, you know, just getting on with life, and we don't know what's going on in their heads. Don't know what's going on in your head, Mikey, or anyone else's, or you don't know what's going on.
As long as they can do a job and do the groceries and whatever, pay the rent, we don't actually notice.
And they're the ones that you don't see because they're not like doing something obviously unwell. So I don't know, these labels, they're kind of a bit nebulous, and yeah, that's my kind of final thought.
Yeah, I think whatever's going on in Mikey's head is probably left where it is. Thank you, actually.
You don't want to know about
knowing a little bit about what goes on in his head.
Okay, all right. Well, let's. We've got a couple of people that haven't given a final thought. Tracy, do you want to hit us with the final thought here?
Yeah, I go back to what Patrick was saying earlier about, you know, having these drop-in centres for different people to go to, and I'm just a bit frustrated because I think that is just the perfect idea, but I'm just sad that it's probably not going to happen, and you know, because of finances. So my final thought is, I think Patrick was spot on. Having places to go to, and people being unjudged, is that the right word? Being not being judged by other people, where, you know, everyone's in the same boat, and that would just be the perfect place for me to be at the moment. Just finances obviously aren't going to spread that far.
Okay, so it comes to the question of money again, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's all well and good, everyone. You know, we're all having all these great ideas, but sadly, putting it into practice is a different matter. Okay,
can we somehow make this happen? Can we fund it maybe through the arts instead of through the health service, or can we do it in a more imaginative way? These are all questions that we can maybe bring up next time. Rick, you've got one more illustration. This is like everyone with a label. They're all quite negative labels, though, Rick. You've got there. I mean, it could be me, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting. This is food for thought. This is what we're doing here. We're trying to provoke and get a response and keep this conversation going. We're, in a way, the way we've all gone self-isolating and gone online has actually meant we've got more time to develop this, so we've got this extra couple of sessions. Next one being on the 15th, same time. But yeah, maybe some of these things can provoke the discussion. Chelsea, we didn't get a final thought from you. Have you got final thought? Let me unmute you.
I've unmuted, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, I was just thinking about what we said before with it's all dependent on like each individual's circumstances, and you know, maybe creating some sort of art space that where you really get to get a connection between you and you know the student or whoever it is that you're working with. I think building up a connection and trust is really important, and like understanding their needs.
Got their hands raised, and I thought we were finishing. We're on fire here. So we've got Bernice. Mikey, are you back in the room?
I'm back in the room. Yeah. I'm just. I don't want to be on two different things at the same time because that is extremely confusing. I know I can do video-wise, but hopefully I'm back on this one. If you can see me, let me just start my video as well.
Yeah. We can see you, by the way.
Oh, you can see us? Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Sideways, back of the head.
Okay, and everywhere. So,
Look to your right, and then you're looking at us.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. But anyway, I've got 3 different camera angles. You might be pleased to know. Okay, so let's get the final thoughts. Sorry about all of this this little technical nonsense at the very beginning here. Yeah. Well, the final. I need to find them actually. Okay, I can see it now.
It's okay. Benny's had her hand up, so maybe.
Yeah, let's Benny's give us.
No. She's waving actual physical hands.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got Kane, Chelsea. No. Yes. Okay. No.
No. Okay.
Tracy. Kane and Tracy. Maybe in that order.
Okay. Kane, give us a final thought.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a summary of the entire chat.
I left my hand up. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, I think it's been a really great session. I think that the question around labels is really a huge one.
What's that?
With regards to mental health. Like, yeah, I think there's some really good points that it's far more prevalent than, mental health issues are far more prevalent than most people think. And that maybe being normal is in some ways abnormal.
Okay, is being normal abnormal? That's a good one to end it on. Tracy, have you got a final thought?
No, but that's just made me chuckle, and I like that to end on. Kane, thank you. Being normal is abnormal.
No worries.
Looks like we're going to end it there. Thanks everyone for taking part. It's been a really amazing conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. It's overloaded our computer and overloaded Rick, but then we've got a couple of weeks to work this out, and do come back on the 15th of April, 12 o'clock, where we're going to be doing the next session. We would have developed the ideas and maybe done a bit of research. You can all help in. Oriana, you're saying we could research what's already out there. Maybe you could help us as well a little bit. And that goes out to everybody. Thanks everyone so much for taking part. It's been a great session.
Thank you.
I'll see you later. Let's have a big group bye-bye.
Bye-bye, and a big thank you to Rick on the visuals, to Mikey on the old mic, and
everybody on the chat. You've done a great job.
But if you did enjoy it, if you think there are people out there who would benefit from joining the conversation, people with points of view, do let them know. Share our post on Facebook or Twitter. We are kind of posting there all the time. And do share the recording of this, which will be available on Facebook, not live anymore, but you're welcome to share it and spread into the world. And if you want to get involved in maybe some deeper way, drop us an email or drop me an email. You should all have my email through the registration, but if you don't, I'll leave my email in the comments. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.